It was 1867, and the war between the states had finally come to an end. The people were rebuilding the ruins left by the battles, and small towns were emerging from this vast wilderness. With Fort Vincent being Illinois' state capital at the time, the cattlemen made it their main headquarters. Large holding corrals for the cattle were built at the railhead located at the north end of town. The railroad from Chicago to Fort Vincent were what the associates were waiting on. Once the railroads were completed, they could supply the big cities with all the beef needed. For the time being, they could only rely on their cattle drives to deliver their livestock to the slaughterhouses and to try to meet the ever-growing demands for fresh meat. It was a 12-day journey one way for the cattle drovers and their herds. This means they would need a special kind of man who could safely lead them 176 miles through the untamed wilderness and across swift-moving waters to their final destination in Chicago. At this point, Mr. J.B. Cobb, the president of the association, sent a telegram to the Cattlemen's Association in Dallas, Texas, asking them for their help. The following morning, he received their answer. They replied saying they only knew of one man that could fill the order, and they could expect him to arrive by rail within a week or so. Charlie Edward Winslow was his name, and he had 10 years of experience, and there was no doubt he was the man for the job. A week had gone by, and there still was no sign of Charlie. It was the morning of April 10th when old number 9 pulled into the station to take on water. Old Mike, the depot attendant, watched as a tall, lanky man stepped down from the coach car. He came out of the doorway, leading a dapple gray gelding down the ramp. Old Mike's eyes lit up at the sight of this beautiful mount. The stranger mounted his high-stepping gelding and slowly headed towards the livery stable. He sat tall in the saddle, and his face showed that he was no stranger to the wind. From across the street, the town sheriff stood silently in the doorway and watched as the stranger slowly rolled by. He could tell by the stranger's appearance that he wasn't just another drifter who rode into town looking for work. Aroused by his curiosity, the sheriff went inside and began looking through his wanted posters. He could only guess that he was a businessman. In a few minutes, the stranger came to stop in front of the Cattlemen's Association payroll office. He climbed down from his horse and tied it to the hitching rail. He began walking on the boardwalk. Each step echoed in the early morning air as he drew closer to the building doorway. Moments later, he opened the door and stepped inside. "Hello," he cried out. "Is there anyone here?" From across the room, a fragile-looking man was sitting at his desk and silently watched as the stranger stepped up to the counter. "Good morning, sir. My name is Daniel Weatherby. I'm the paymaster for the Cattlemen's Association. How can I help you?" The stranger stood there in silence. He slowly ran his right hand inside his coat, then he spoke. "I hope like hell I got the right person, because I came a long way just to give you this." Suddenly, Mr. Weatherby's heart began pounding very hard. His mind ran wild with fearsome thoughts. Silently, he muttered in prayer. With a quick move, the stranger pulled his hands out of his coat and slapped a big envelope down on the counter. Seeing that he wasn't going to be shot, Mr. Weatherby breathed with a sigh of relief. The stranger began to chuckle very loudly, then he spoke. "That scared the hell out of you, didn't it?" With a weak but angry voice, Mr. Weatherby replied, "Don't think that scaring a person half to death is funny at all." Then the paymaster opened the envelope and said, "Well, Mr. Winslow, it looks like everything is in order, so I'll send word to Mr. B.J. Cobb that you have arrived." After mounting his horse, Charlie slowly rode to the stable. Charlie rides by the saloon and he noticed that he has a few people watching. He sat silently in the saddle and watched as the blacksmith finished forming a new horseshoe. Good morning. Folks call me Swede. What can I do for you? How much will it cost me to stable my horse for the rest of the day? 13 cents, Swede replied. 10 cents a day for the use of the stable, 1 cent for the currying, and 2 cents for the hay and grain. When Swede finished up with the horse, they both walked over to the saloon for a drink. Looks a little rowdy. Let's go on in. It'll be all right. I got the first round. Swede filled me in on a little bit about the local cattlemen's association. A few groups around can't be trusted, so you gotta watch your back. Me and Swede finished up drinking out the rest of the night.